Yes, it's Uncle Jegs, and today's video is all about the reaction time required practical. So we've finished all of Biology 1, now we're on the Biology 2 required practical. This video is broken down into these sections. The first one is the organization of the nervous system, then we're looking at the reflex arc, then the required practical itself, and finally, possible questions that you may get in your exam. As always, check out the description below for today's worksheet and also the answers to the previous video's worksheet as well. Okay, let's do this tank. Now, if I was to place you in a dark room and stimulate this part of your brain, you hear things even though there's no sound in the room. And if I stimulate this part, you taste things even though there's nothing in your mouth. Now, if we follow these connections from the taste center and auditory center in your brain, we see that these cells end up being connected to your tongue and ears respectively. The same is true for all your other sense organs. The nose, the eyes, all of them have a specific part of the brain that they stimulate in order for you to be aware of your environment. Think about how mad that is. Your brain is making up your reality based on what these cells are doing. Your nervous system can be summed up in this flowchart: stimuli, receptor, coordinator, effector. Stimuli are changes in your environment. For example, a sound wave propagating from your phone when you get a notification. At this stage, it's just vibrations in the air. The receptors detect the stimuli and send an electrical impulse. In this example, that would be the hair cells in your inner ear that detect the sound wave. But you have different receptors for your different sense organs, each adapted to absorbing the different types of stimuli in your environment. The coordinator is technically your central nervous system, which is just your brain and spinal cord. We can abbreviate that to just CNS. The spine is involved in reflexes, which we'll touch up in a bit. The brain processes your electrical impulses and decides what to do with all of that information. The nerve cells that connect your receptors in your sense organs to your CNS are called sensory neurons. Now, just a quick side note on these names. A neuron is just another name for a nerve cell, but nerves are bundles of hundreds of neurons, even thousands in some locations. Get into the habit of calling individual nerve cells neurons so you don't make the mistakes of calling them nerves. You may end up getting on the examiner's nerves if you do that. Oh wow, tough crowd. When the brain decides what to do with that impulse, in this example working out what the sound is and its direction, it sends an impulse to your motor neurons. These are neurons that connect your CNS to effectors. Effectors can either be muscles or glands. When an impulse from a motor neuron hits a gland, it causes it to release substances. These could be stuff like hormones, enzymes, mucus, anything like that. But in our example, the impulse is going to the muscles in your neck to turn your head towards the direction of the phone. Check out my video on specialized animal cells for more details on the structure of neurons, okay? Here are some summary notes on all of that. One of the most important survival mechanisms that we have are reflexes. Reflexes are rapid automatic responses that do not involve the conscious part of the brain. Since it doesn't use the brain, it means that you can react very quickly and limit the damage that something might be causing you. Let's say you're putting up your Christmas lights and you burn your hand. You don't have to think about moving your hand. Your body gladly makes that decision without your permission. Have a look at this diagram. The thing that makes this response so fast is that initially it does not go to your brain. The signal of pain and regret that you feel form after you've moved your hand away. This butterfly looking thing here is your spinal cord. This flow chart shows you the passage of information in a reflex arc. Stimuli, receptor, sensory, neuron, relay neuron, motor neuron, effector, and then your response. First you have your stimulus. This is the fire in this example. Then your receptor in this example is the heat and pain receptors in your skin, which send electrical impulses down your sensory neuron. The sensory neuron extends into your spinal cord. Do not call it your spine is the bone, okay? Then over here, When you look at two neurons next to each other, you see that they're not actually touching. When an impulse arrives at the end of an axon, chemicals are released from that neuron. These diffuse across the synapse, this gap is called the synapse, and then they bind to the receptors on the next neuron. Check out my video on diffusion for the full breakdown on how that works. After the chemicals bind, you probably guessed it, the next neuron then sends an electrical impulse down its axon. Your neurons in your spinal cord are called your relay neurons. The relay neurons then pass the chemical signals across another synapse to your motor neuron. Again, notice that the signal does not initially go to your brain. The motor neuron then stimulates the muscle cells, causing them to contract, and then your response is that your hand moves away from your stimuli. Here are some summary notes on the reflex arc. Now we're ready for the required practical itself. This is probably the easiest required practical to do, but the idea of reaction time can be a bit confusing at first. Reaction time is a measure of how long it takes an organism to react to a stimuli. Look at these two reaction times, 0.25 and 2.50. Which one is the fastest? The key is to remember that you're talking about time and not speed. If it was speed, then obviously 2.5 meters per second is faster than 0.25 meters per second. But no, you're talking about time. So the shorter your reaction time, the quicker you are. The first individual took 0.25 seconds to react to a stimuli, while the second was 10 times slower, taking 2.5 seconds to react. A cheap way and easy way of doing this in school is just to measure how long it takes you to catch a falling ruler. You just even measure the distance, you don't even have to use time anywhere. Here the stimuli is the falling ruler. That visual information goes into your brain, which sends an electrical impulse to the muscles in your hand to contract and catch the ruler. These examiners can give you various variations of this experiment. I'll be looking at two in particular. Investigate whether practice reduces human reaction time. That's our first one. These are the steps for that first reaction time experiment. Sit down on a chair and place your weaker hand on the table. Number 2, your partner will hold the ruler vertically with the 0 centimeter end in between your thumb and first finger. Number 3, without telling you or giving you any signs, your partner will let go of the ruler. Number 4, you then try to catch the ruler as soon as possible when you see it dropping. Number 5, you record your distance in a table like this and repeat to get a total of 10 results. Number 6, switch places with your partner and repeat the experiment. Then number 7, you're going to use a conversion table which looks like this. This converts your distance into reaction times. Now it is very likely that you will see some decrease in reaction time. That just shows you that the more you practice, the better you become at something. Another way that the practical could be carried out is like this. Investigate how caffeine affects reaction time. In this investigation, you carry out the same steps, but you do one experiment without coffee or caffeine and another one with caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant which increases your awareness, so you should reduce your reaction time because you're taking a stimulant that makes you more alert, so you'll be better able to detect when that ruler is dropping. There are other variations that they could give you. The steps will be the same, the only thing that's changing is your independent variable. And your independent variable in the exams could be stuff like investigate if age affects reaction time, so age is your independent variable. It could also be gender, it could be distractions like music or a conversation. There's bare things that they can change. Let's look at the possible questions that you could get for this required practical that I haven't touched yet. This first one, suggest improvements to the experiment. What you can do here is to increase the number of repeats and calculate a mean. What this does is that it reduces the impact of random errors. You could also use more people and this gives you a bigger sample size. You could also use a computer program that measures reaction time. This will reduce the chances of the person catching the ruler anticipating when the ruler is dropping. Another question you could get is explain the anomalous result. What they can do here is that they could get you to identify an anomaly, calculate the mean, and then explain how that anomaly occurred. If your result is lower than expected, the person could have predicted when the ruler will drop and so already started the process of trying to catch it. If the number is higher than expected, then the person could have been distracted by something, maybe a conversation or someone getting a detention, who knows. So yeah, that was reaction time. When you deep it, this is actually the easiest required practical, so make sure you've got this one on lock. Anyway, make sure you check out the worksheet below and the answer to last week's worksheet. Merry Christmas and all that. If you're year 11, you better be using some of this time to revise. As of recording this, you have 20 weeks until your Biology 1 paper, so you better be revising over these holidays, yeah? You've got 2 weeks to revise. Anyway, like if you like, subscribe if I'm necessary, and yeah, in a bit.